So, Yasir, you will begin or Hassan?
Sir, I think Yasir hasn't joined yet.
Hasn't joined.
So should I proceed?
Okay, Hassan.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
The fourth unit on leadership, motivation, and directing is discussed. To begin with motivation, Sir has given two examples demonstrating the highest level of motivation to set the process of thinking amongst the group members. Highest level of motivation further divided into two parts, army and women. Army or defense services, Sir reflects how an army man is ready to lay the life for the nation, how he sacrificed his precious life. This causes the highest level of motivation. Women, this is also the highest level of motivation. Women like mothers, housewives, etc., set a completely new family for themselves. Mother never asks for a holiday. She always wakes up early and takes care of her family and is the last to go to the bed. So the question is, what causes such a high level of motivation? Sense of identity. So define belongingness as a sense of identity when you identify yourself with something. For example, silly statements to girls that your house is here. Sense of identity is created through a variety of ways. Training is one of them, that others are wearing the same uniform. It also creates a sense of identity. Sense of identity is one of the cores of creating. Now, let us discuss sense of responsibility. When you make people responsible, in addition to sharing the statement, often the elders in the family should say that level at which the elders sets his significant goals. The motivation drives in. After marriage, the woman went to a new family with complete strangers, where she spent the rest of her life. She put there all to build a better family. Sir said, for him, it's a people have lasting motivation. One of the things we need to ensure is creating a sense of identity, and this identity should not be a fake kind of thing. It's a real thing. It's a real thing, something which the person really identifies. Then in the army, they do it through other methods. Also use various identities like existing identities. Examples were given was Sikh regiment, Gorkha regiment. So all these are the attempts to create the identity. When you learn to put yourself within the expectation of others, you start learning to identify yourself. Real motivation. The essence of motivation is energized and persistent goal-directed behavior. When we are motivated, we move and take care. Motivation is influenced by the satisfaction of needs that are either necessary for sustaining life or essential for well-being and growth. Sir discussed an Urdu story from the novel written by Rajendra Singh Bedi was Apne Dukh Mujhe De Do. Do we ever achieve the highest level as far as motivation is concerned? No, because whenever you reach the top or you feel as if you are touching the top gets pushed up, the bar keeps on increasing. It is a part of self expectation and not the expectation that others impose on us. Authority is earned. Earlier, sir mentioned on issue and power authorities. Sir made a distinct between personal power and positional power. So the authority term is used in the context of positional power. The motivation we are talking about is internal and not external. We operate at two levels. The minimum we are capable of, the maximum we are capable of, the minimum that we can deliver. In the organizations, people are delivering much less than what they are actually capable of, and the reason behind this can be the lack of sense of identity and sense of responsibility. They are unable to create a sense of identity. They are not keeping people responsible properly. Whatever external factors shape our behavior, such problems may arise, but the moment it becomes internal, we can reach our desired state. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Hassan.
Good morning, sir.
Yasir, good morning.
So can I share my slide?
Yes.
Good morning. First of all, I would like to give a brief introduction about myself. I'm Yasir Ahmed and I have done my schooling and graduation from Kanpur. My hobbies are I love to travel, go to camping, and do cooking. My strength is I can adapt to new situations easily. My weakness is I lack in public dealing. My future goal is I aspire to be an entrepreneur. And now I am going to present a quick recap of yesterday's class. So, the topic we discussed yesterday was lasting motivation. Discussion started with presenting two examples of highest level of motivation. First was defense forces and second was a mother at home. In case of defense forces, they were so highly motivated that they were ready to even lay their life to guard the motherland and feel honor in it. While in case of mothers, it was emphasized how tirelessly she worked from early morning to late night all day without a break to raise their children and take care of other family members. The discussion moved further to find out the force behind such a high level of motivation, which drive these people discussed in the case to regularly perform their job each day. Some notable opinions which came up were sense of attachment and belongingness, love to the nation, aspiration, sense of responsibility, training, commitment, and social expectation. Out of which sense of identity, training, and sense of responsibility were elaborated with few examples, like how a simple statement said to a bride when she leaves her parents' house that where you are going is your home now on, create a sense of identity in her. And in case of army, it was explained how uniform and drill create a sense of identity among soldiers. It was concluded that sense of identity creates a lasting motivation, while sense of responsibility was also found to be a potent factor for lasting level of motivation. In between the discussion, an important question came up that do we ever achieve the highest level of motivation? To answer this, the observation shared was whenever we reach the top gets pushed up. Next, while discussion progressed, it was found that failing to make people responsible and failing to create a sense of identity are key factors because of which institution fails to create motivation. And finally, the discussion concluded by putting up a question, how can we ignite the fire inside? Thank you.
Thank you, Yas. So we had witnessed two content-rich presentations, both by Hassan Arif and Yasir. And Hassan Arif's presentation was very clear-headed, and the ideas were presented in the right manner, except for one part which I think he may work on further. That is, I have been always emphasizing on, making an animated presentation. Animated, I mean, when, there's there is life in the presentation, full of life, isn't it? So that is indicated by all your verbal and non-verbal gestures. So, I mean, the audience should get a feeling that you are enjoying every moment of your presentation. So, if you are able to
Yes, sir.
pass on this to the audience, then we grow into a person who mesmerizes the audience. So, I think this is one area where Hassan Arif now you need to work on. And I think
Okay,
this
sir.
applies to Yasser also. Yasser made a good, impactful presentation, and he is blessed with a resonating voice. All those are his strengths. But this idea, how do we reinforce our verbal communication with non-verbal communication? A smiling face, uh, you know, giving an impression that yes, you really have something to share with others. In case of Yasser, I think the connect was breaking at times because of the heavy content on the slides. And I have always been emphasizing this point that PowerPoint means there should only be points, no running text which you are already explaining the ideas. So avoid running texts on the slides. Okay. And Yasser, what kind of entrepreneur you want to become? Any idea?
Sir, actually, I'm looking to get into healthcare or
Okay.
basically telemedicine was one of my area where I was looking forward.
Hmm.
And the others area also because I belong to Kanpur and there are leather factories all around my locality where I live.
Hmm.
There are options available for leather exports as well. So there are too many options available. First of all, I have to learn how to manage a business because I can spoil it anytime. But to maintain it, I have to learn how to maintain a business and then I can move ahead.
Okay. So I wish you all good luck.
Thank you, sir.
My only suggestion is first learn at the cost of somebody else's. Hmm? So
So
you don't earn.
there is a saying, business को भी अपने पैसे से नहीं किया जाता.
But finally, when you have learned to walk on the ropes, it is your own investment which matters. Biggest investment is your own career, isn't it?
Yes.
So we don't do a less than 100% job when we are an entrepreneur
Yes, sir.
because the stakes are very high. In a job, you can switch over to something else, but not as an entrepreneur. Okay, so now let us come to this point that we were discussing, and both your friends have restated the broad context in which I wanted to discuss specific theories of motivation, and they talked about how this sense of identity which you create and the sense of responsibility that you create, and because this makes the person feels important, that he's somebody, you know, he's or she is the lady of the house, he is the savior of the nation. And I have seen this amongst bureaucrats training also. And you must have met some such district magistrates, for example. Suppose somebody makes it to civil services at the age of 23, 24. And then at the age of 32, 33, he is appointed as the district magistrate of a entire district. Now, at that age, how do you perform? You perform because you are made responsible and you feel important that yes, you have to run the show. So this is also, government's way of training their civil servants and bureaucrats. They make them responsible for huge things in the beginning of their career. And that way they grow as a person when they start assuming responsibility. My younger brother is in railways and he got into it through mechanical stream, got into Indian engineering services, and he was looking after the locomotive division in Jhansi one. So I asked him once, how many people report to you? And he did some rough calculations, and based on that, he said roughly around 3,000 people work under him. So that is the kind of situation in which you are put in, and then you blossom as an individual, because that ensures your growth also. I did not discuss this point yesterday. I think when you are made responsible for things, you feel growth within, isn't it? You're growing as a person. And this applies to our job teaching also. When I look back how slowly and gradually this profession has contributed to my own growth. And that growth mostly has occurred in the classrooms during last 30 odd years. I mean, I have been teaching variety of subjects, but last 15 odd years I have been teaching the same subjects. But and you might get a feeling that I may be getting bored teaching the same thing, repeating again and again. But there's a very different kind of growth that you experience. My each class which I have conducted in a particular session is not a replica of the previous session's class. Many things that I learned, and in the process I grow as a person. Isn't it? I learn to articulate various ways in which an idea can be communicated. So, but the core point is what we have discussed earlier, that the motivation which is internal stays. The motivation which is external is able to influence the behavior for a short period of time, not over a long period of time. So the theories of motivation which have been proposed to explain this phenomena, I'll discuss a couple of them. Although the detailed theories you will study in your organizational behavior course, which you will be studying in the second semester. But one of the most popular theory which has been proposed to explain this phenomena of human motivation is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think by now you may be familiar with what is its approach. What is this hierarchy at this
So
stage?
it starts with physiological needs of the humans. Yes, sir.
Okay, the physiological needs includes needs like food, hunger, clothes, shelter, isn't it? And actually, the external sources of motivation were working fine till the physiological needs were dominating, isn't it? अगर मैनेजर कह देता था कि दरवाजे का रास्ता दिखा दूंगा, I mean that was good enough to seek compliance from the others. In fact, in homes also it worked. So the typical approach was the carrot and the stick. You gain compliance either you through a carrot dangling in front of the person. You do this, you will get this. Because generally, when that carrot was offered, it was people were at the level of physiological needs, and the carrot was responsible for fulfilling the hunger. So Maslow's the lowest hierarchy of needs was the physiological needs. But then once you get it here and now, you want to be sure of it in the long run also. So in addition to physiological needs, there were security needs. And that is why perhaps there was a premium on the governmental jobs. A decade ago, I mean, even now, there are some students who aspire for a government job. And people of my generation, for example, one of the things which mattered to us was post-retirement, how do we lead the life? And the government's job provided you the security of a pension. And we have seen this in the university. People who have earned pension for more than the number of years they have served. By and large, the longevity of life has increased. And We have had teachers who passed away. I was the other day talking about Professor Stubem Ansari. He passed away at a ripe age of 92, 93. So people would, you know, get pension for more number of years than the number of years they have served. So physiological needs and then security needs. But then this was not good enough, and there were other needs in the hierarchy. And what was the next need considered important? And that was social need. So people have economic needs, but people also have need to interact with people, part of a society, part of a social group. So social needs were also considered important by Maslow. So in the hierarchy, the third level of need was the social need. Now again, there is another thing in the human behavior, and that is once you are part of the social group, you just don't want to be yet another part of the social group. You want to be an important part of that social group. And then came the fourth need, which is called the esteem needs. You feel that you are somebody, isn't it? And that keeps us motivated. So people would vie for example, getting an invitation from the university because that fulfills their esteem needs. But what is the highest level of need which Maslow conceptualized? Any idea about that?
Self-actualization needs.
Self actualization. What is self actualization?
So when we achieve something and like for example, if a person has everything, but some of his dreams left behind, like uh, when it comes to the polo, so not everyone can play that, but some of us wants to play because we like the game, but we didn't have the money or we didn't have that that much of uh, like that of much of money so that we can play. So when we achieve everything, so then we will be like, okay, now I want to play polo because sometimes in my life I wanted that.
That is with respect to special interest that we may have.
So
But
it's
overall,
basically about realizing our own potential and using our creativity to like to a larger extent.
can you repeat the second point? Realizing our potential and
So and to to utilize our creativity to a larger extent in our lives. For example, like it should not get wasted. We have got a life, so we should use our potential and our creativity to our best extent.
So I want to add here is optimally use the potential whichever a person have.
optimally or maximally?
Optimally.
And how do you define how do you explain the difference between optimally and maximally?
Sir. That I can't define at this moment, sir. But I heard this somewhere.
Actually, if you recall our discussion in the previous class, I said that there are two levels at which we live our life. One is the minimum we can get away with, and the maximum that we are capable of, isn't it? And I've also shared this idea that that maximum actually is never achieved because the moment you reach to that position, the bar gets pushed up. You realize that you are far more capable than you thought you were, isn't it? In fact, if you can use this terminology which has been used in Islamic literature, man has been referred to as Ashraful Makhluqat. He is the best creature of all the creatures that Almighty has created. What does that mean when we say human beings are the best creatures of Almighty?
So human have the power to control, to access control over the rest of the creatures.
In fact, if you look at this conceptualization which we have about the creation of man, as far as the Islamists' point of view is concerned, it is said that human beings, they come out of इंसान को मिट्टी से बनाया गया, isn't it? What is the characteristic of the mud?
So it can easily mold into different situation easily.
It can be molded to different situations. Yes.
सब मिट्टी में ही मिलना.
Yes, finally you will get back to that mitti. Yes, that is also there. But if you look at it rather, scratch beyond this, mud takes various forms. It could be most fertile and could be life sustaining, but it could also get the form of a dandal, as we call it, the marshy lands. And if we get caught in that web, we will be drowned. So the basic nature of human beings is that they can achieve the most exalted position in life, and they can be at an abysmally low level also. Both the possibilities exist, because these are the characteristics of mud out of which human beings have been created, isn't it? So Maslow is talking about that exalted position that we are all capable of achieving. And this term responsibility, which we have discussed earlier, I break it into two parts. It is responsibility. We are blessed with the ability to respond to a situation. We make judgment. So both the abilities have been provided to us. Now Maslow is talking about this ability to take that exalted position where we become what we are capable of becoming. And many of us do achieve that kamal in their personality. So it is, getting that kamal in your personality. What could be the English equivalent of this word kamal?
Charisma.
Charisma could be one dimension. It could be the one outcome of somebody who achieves
Bravo.
kamal.
Potential.
Potential, maybe perfection.
Perfection, sir.
Excellence.
इसको एक शेर में कहा कि है जुस्तजू के खूब से है खूब तर कहाँ, खूब से खूब तर की तलाश. So when we are on that journey, we self-actualize our potential, and that is what Maslow is talking about, isn't it? So people reach from the lower order needs to the higher order needs, and the theory of motivation proposed by Maslow says that human beings strive or progress from the lower level needs to the higher level needs, and ultimately it is the higher level needs which provide the lasting motivation. There have been critique of this approach, one being that this progression which has been talked about, because this theory actually is more of an intuitive theory. There has been no empirical research which has been conducted, and Maslow thought that it should be like this. But again, human beings are of all hues and colors, and they may have different orientations. For example, for some, the lower order needs may not matter at all. And especially this tradition is very strong in India. For example, if you look at the Indian society, one of the highest social category is, if you look at the Varna system in the ancient Indian society, the Varna system was based on the classification of four Varnas, and the highest was the Brahmins. And the Brahmins generally survived on bhiksha because they were busy in the intellectual pursuits of life. And so people may bypass, the point I'm making is that people may bypass lower order needs and directly jump to the higher order needs. So the theory has its share of criticism. And then came the another theory which tried to explain this phenomena of motivation. And this we call the two-factor theory. And what is this two-factor theory? The two-factor theory says that actually the way Maslow puts it, that there is a progression and we have first the lower order needs and then the higher order needs. Actually, he looked at it as two different levels, two different continuums. You have lower order needs and you have higher order needs, separate. If you have more of lower order needs, what does it lead to? Let us look at the job of a teacher, for example, university teacher. When I joined the university, if I compare my salary with my friends who joined the corporate sector, it was abysmally low. It was only in the sixth pay commission that teachers' salaries were revised and they were brought at par, and we were blessed to have a good salary. But what does that mean? If we get good salary, will we be motivated? Or teachers, think of your own teachers, or when I think of my own teachers who taught me, were they getting more salary? And that is why they were doing a good job of teaching?
Not really so.
Not really. In fact, some of the classic teachers, actually, they were far less blessed financially than we are, fortunately, presently. And does that mean that we are highly motivated now because we are getting more salary?
No, sir.
So what happens is this is a crucial point of this theory, that actually we start from a stage of dissatisfaction with lower order needs, for example. And once we get more and more of lower order needs fulfilled, we come to a stage of no dissatisfaction. So we are dissatisfied and then we are not dissatisfied. So if we get good salary, we are not dissatisfied. It doesn't mean that we are motivated. Because the factors which cause motivation are different. Other than salary and the external factors which I was talking about in the first. So the first continuum is you are dissatisfied and then you are not dissatisfied. These are the two extremes of the continuum. Let us come to the second continuum. What does that indicate? It says that I am not satisfied or motivated. So if there is no identity in my job, if there is no sense of responsibility in my job, if there is no, let us say, growth in my job, what will happen? I will experience no satisfaction. Mind you, the choice of word is very mind the choice of the words very carefully. I said, the first continuum said, you are dissatisfied and then you are not dissatisfied. This was the first continuum. Now, in the second continuum, you are saying you are not satisfied or you are not motivated. But then, suppose the job provides you importance, you get recognition for the work done. People start talking good about you. He's a good teacher. Because when you teach well in the class, your fame spreads. And every student of your class becomes your ambassador. Because they generally, when they talk, it is the most, objective view that you get outside. The collective experience of the students. Isn't it? So now what you are doing is you started teaching, you started experiencing growth, you started getting recognition from the society. People are talking good about you. So, for example, when my father was alive, and this was something which he would compliment me often, that whenever I meet your student, they talk good about you. And that was a great motivation. Trust me, that was a great motivation. So now we are in a stage where we are talking about not satisfied to satisfied. Why? There are two continuums. The reason being that the first set of factors are external. The second set of factors are internal. What causes satisfaction is internal. What causes dissatisfaction is external. Am I clear on this point? So actually you can have a strange situation, especially if, for example, if I talk about my own job, and this could apply to many other jobs, that I may be dissatisfied, but I may be motivated. Why? Because the factors which are causing dissatisfaction are different from the factors which are causing motivation. What is motivating me is the internal factors, the sense of responsibility, the sense of identity that I have. Yes, I am a teacher in a central university. This is my identity. And that to AMU, a prestigious organization and 100 years old organization. And as I said, you have a sense of growth in the class. You are also growing as a person. So I may be I may be motivated because of these internal factors, but I may be demotivated. Not demotivated, again I use the wrong word. I may be dissatisfied because of external factors. External factors, for example, I said salary is one thing, which is not internal, which is external. The compensation that you get for the work. There are other external factors like your working conditions. Now we are blessed to have a good management complex for us. But if you visit our older building, we jokingly used to call it Kabutar Khana, isn't it? Because it was, we used to call it architectural blunder. So, and we were crumpled into a room, 3 or 4 faculty members would sit in one. It was all very crowded. But does that mean that we were not motivated then to teach? Never. So this is something which has been added by Herzberg's two-factor theory, an additional insight other than the insight which Maslow offered. Maslow looked at the entire phenomena as a single continuum phenomenon. Herzberg called it two-factor theory. There were two separate continuums. The first continuum causes dissatisfaction. The second continuum causes motivation. So if a manager says that I pay them so well, but these people, these buggers are not motivated, actually it is a wrong question, because if you just pay them well, it will not create motivation. It will reduce satisfaction. It will reduce dissatisfaction. That's all it would do. And ultimately, people will come to a stage of no dissatisfaction. In fact, Herzberg used a very interesting term for these dissatisfiers. He called them hygiene factors. What is hygiene? Hygiene lays the basic condition of health. Hygiene is not health, but hygiene is the base for health. So yes, an organization needs to ensure that the external factors are taken good care, which includes salary, which includes working conditions, which includes uh, good relations with the team members. So, for example, there may be in some of the departments we witness a lot of infighting going on. But does that mean that because of that the teacher would do a lousy job of teaching? Not necessarily, because that is an external factor. So the theory, what is the then crux of this theory? The crux of the theory is that there are two set of factors. In fact, I use the word hygiene factors and the motivators. And an organization, for ensuring the lasting motivation, has to focus on these motivators, the content factors, not just the context factors. So this is the distinction between Maslow and Herzberg's. So if I have been able to explain this, I seek your queries, or if there is some point which may not be clear, please get it clarified. So now can you explain the difference between Maslow and Herzberg? Their approach to motivation, and which one makes more sense to you? Yeah, sir, would you like to respond?
Sir, I think Maslow's theory, because it is divided into five hierarchy.
Hmm.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yes.
Sir, as you said, according to Herzberg, uh, if someone is getting is getting paid for a job, then he is only reducing his dissatisfaction.
Yes.
But what if he's not working for the money? He wants to really uh, give something to his work, just not because of the money. And if after even after getting the money, he's not uh, satisfied.
That is what the point is. The entire point is this only, that if you just pay them well, it is not good enough. Ultimately, what you have to do is you have to make sure that the job is interesting. In fact, after Herzberg proposed this theory, many efforts were made in fact, and they fall into a broad category of literature which we call job enrichment literature. And there was a movement, almost a movement, that ultimately we have to enrich the jobs of individuals. Then only they will be motivated continuously. There are some jobs which have an inbuilt element of growth and motivation. I told you about teaching, for example. Teaching is a very rewarding job, and for somebody who has a calling for it, whatever are the external factors, he would continue to teach well. There have been situations when I was not very happy with the external side of my job, but that doesn't mean that I was less motivated to teach or give my 100% in my classes. So but the point is, there are very few professions which have this kind of independence. Generally, jobs are interdependent. So in that situation, and often jobs are routine jobs. For example, a banker may have to process check throughout the day. That's all. How can we enrich such jobs? Isn't it? So there are jobs which have a drudgery involved in it. How can we enrich those jobs? So I think now we have overshot the time a bit. Maybe we'll continue we will spend one more turn on this. But do think about it, and I'll get back to you on this. The comparison of Herzberg and Maslow, and then what are the implications of both these approaches? And can we, if especially in the context of Herzberg's theory, can we enrich all the jobs? Is there a possibility? Especially jobs which are routine jobs, which have to be performed repeatedly. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.